and thanks to everybody who's joined us this afternoon. And we're looking forward to discussing and also talking with you about how S2O can be part of a sustainable transformation into open access. My name is Ben Ashcroft. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at De Gruyter Brill. I came from the De Gruyter side of the now combined company. So I'm approaching this from, I suppose, a bit more of the De Gruyter angle of things. Partly because although we're now a combined company, we are continuing for the moment to follow slightly different tracks toward open access. Next slide, please, Craig. First of all, De Gruyter and Brill announced the agreement to form the new company in October of 2023, and the transaction was finalized in April of last year. So we're coming up to the year mark of the two companies coming together, and this is just a look at the journals portfolio and the open access portfolio of the two companies put together. So we have just over 800 journals across the two, and we published around 30,000 new articles per year. The majority of the journals portfolios of both companies are humanities and social sciences, over 80%. As I said previously, the job of bringing everything together is going to take a while, especially for technical reasons. The whole job of getting everything onto one platform from the two current Brill and De Gruyter websites is a big one. So until 2027 or thereabouts, we are really looking at two different journal portfolios rather than one as a whole. That said, however, we do share similar ambitions with regards to open access, and also a reasonably similar approach to our institutional and consortia agreements as well. Next slide, please. And in terms of our current open access profile, we have about 210 open access journals across the two companies. Those are spread across different models. At the moment, we have a very diversified approach to transitioning our portfolios. So we have APC models, APC journals, we have S2O journals, we have sponsored or diamond journals. Particularly the APC and S2O titles are well supported by almost 50 open access institutional agreements globally, covering several thousand institutions right across the world on all continents. Next slide, please. So why, on the De Gruyter side at least, did we decide to go with S2O as the main model with which to make our transformation into open access? Well, I suppose the first thing to say is there is no perfect model, and there's really no consensus among publishers or in the market about which is the best model to get to open access. In August 2023, so before De Gruyter and Brill merged, De Gruyter announced that we would be using the subscribe to open model. And that was really because we had established as part of a large project that with a predominantly humanities and social sciences portfolio, an APC-led approach was not going to lead to transformation at scale for us. Two problems particularly are that there's a lack of open access funding for humanities and social sciences content, and there's also no real culture of paying to publish in many of those disciplines. And an additional hurdle that was specific to De Gruyter is that the author base of De Gruyter is not located where De Gruyter currently does its subscription business. There's a fundamental mismatch between where authors come from and where the money is coming from that currently funds the publishing of our portfolio. And this meant that the publish and read deals that we had done at De Gruyter up until then actually had very limited impact on our publishing. We had used sponsored or diamond open access for some titles, but reliance on third-party funding for those means that it's not really workable for a full program. It's not scalable out to a large number of journals. And as we investigated all the prevailing models, it became increasingly apparent to us that Subscribe to Open was probably the approach that would work best for our journal portfolio. Next slide, please, Craig. And we are seeing an increasing adoption of S2O by both humanities and social sciences and STM publishers. And it's down to the many advantages that it offers when compared to other approaches, particularly APC models. So it has an immediate impact on open access transformation, making it possible at scale and at speed and globally. It's inclusive, and I'm deliberately using the word inclusive, despite some of the things that are going on in the world at the moment, because it enables all authors to publish open access, and it does support all content types, and it's a viable model really for everybody involved in the scholarly publishing universe. It's simple. It doesn't require anyone to adopt new workflows and processes in comparison to the vast bureaucracy that seems to have grown up around managing APCs. And then finally, it's one of the few models that's really found widespread favor with funders and other key stakeholders across a wide range of geographies. Next slide, please. So de Gruyter put together a plan starting in 2023 that should see the vast majority of the 320 odd subscription journals under the de Gruyter label transitioning to open access by 2028, with S2O being the major model. But the portfolio is broad and it's diverse, and even by 2028, there will still be a mixture of hybrid, read-only, APC, and sponsored models alongside S2O. So with that in mind, how does this work in the context of institutional agreements in order to make open access publishing for the patrons, faculty, and students of universities as simple and as affordable as possible? Next slide, please. And thanks. Well, we've called the approach all-inclusive because that's what it aims to do. It aims to include all journals and all models within one framework agreement, and it's based on recognizing the fact that over a number of years, the journals and the portfolios will shift between models. And it allows for this by including everything within a single annual fee that pays for access and unlimited publishing for all the titles included. For those titles that remain as paywall subscription titles or those in S2O, the base remains the subscription price, meaning that institutions have a high degree of cost stability. And then on top of that, we calculate the cost of publishing hybrid and gold open access in the relevant titles based on a 2-year rolling average of actual publishing. And this allows for the cost of each element to change as journals move, for example, from hybrid into S2O, while retaining a high degree of transparency. And we're really, really pleased that the take-up of this model has been good. So we've had consortia such as JISC and BIBSAM in Sweden, SURF in the Netherlands, and a wide range of prestigious North American institutions coming on board as early adopters of the all-inclusive model. Next slide, please. And participating institutions have been really quite quick to see the multiple benefits of the model. It's extremely transparent, it's simple to administer, it offers a high degree of budgeting certainty while making it easy for academics to publish unlimited articles free of additional costs. In addition, libraries have the security of perpetual access to the content, regardless of whether the journals transfer successfully to open access or not in the S2O model. And we offer the security of an open access guarantee, whereby articles can be published under a liberal green open access regime if S2O is not successful for a particular title. Next slide, please. The Brill approach is a more traditional, I guess, read and publish one, and that is continuing. So read and publish agreements are in place with a number of major consortia, which covers actually quite well. It overlaps quite nicely with de Gruyter agreements as well. And those are called read and publish agreements. But the benefits to library and academics are basically the same. It's unlimited read access to the entire journal collection and uncapped publishing rights by eligible authors. And again, libraries retain perpetual access to the journal content publishing during the years of their participation in those agreements. Next slide, please. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, we might have different ways of getting there at the moment, but one thing that de Gruyter and Brill do have in common is a commitment to shifting our portfolios into open access and to achieving a long-term sustainable solution for humanities and social sciences content in open access. We are anticipating, what our goal is to make sure that scholars in these areas have more opportunities going forward to publish their content open access and to have a transformative impact as well. And we are working towards a point where within, I think, 2 years or so, we will be able to put forward one approach and one model across both publishers. Next slide, please. So yeah, both companies have this commitment to transform our portfolios by 2028. We do have the challenge of doing so for a humanities and social sciences focused program. We do see libraries and working together with libraries to support transforming journals as absolutely key, especially for humanities and social sciences. Through the agreements we have in place, I think we've, across both companies, got a very good basis for doing so. And our goal now is to work with the library community and with scholars to put in place a way of doing so across both portfolios that will work and be sustainable for the future. Final slide, please, Craig. Just to end, just to show in terms of numbers, progress so far across both the de Gruyter and the Brill portfolios. Both show a nice upward trajectory, and the de Gruyter, the higher percentage on the de Gruyter side, is a lot of that is down to the fact that we have more STM content, more of which is in APC-driven models and has been open access for longer than is the case at Brill. But I think both those sets of numbers underline our commitment to open access as de Gruyter Brill, and we're very much looking forward to seeing those numbers continuing to rise as we work towards our 2028 goal. And with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your questions afterwards in the chat, and I'll hand over to, I think it's Richard who's next.
Yes, that's right. Thanks very much, Ben. Really great stuff. Just everyone that's joined since we started, please do use the Q&A function at the top right-hand side of your screen. It's a little bubble with a question mark in it. We have plenty of time for questions at the end, so do use this opportunity. Right, with that, I'm handing over to Richard. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Ben. Thanks to everyone for joining this event, and to the organisers for inviting me to participate. I'm on vacation at the moment, so I hope I'm able to switch into work mode here. I think I'll be fine. I want to talk about our experience at annual reviews with Subscribe to Open. We were the first publisher to try this model going back to 2020 was our first pilot, and I would just want to give you an overview of why we did it and where things stand and what impact it's had. Could you go on, Craig, please? So a little bit about Annual Reviews. We're a non-profit publisher dedicated to synthesizing and integrating knowledge for the progress of science and the benefit of society. We're an organization that's run for and by the research community. Our board is made up of academics. The organization is an original spin-out of Stanford University in the 30s. So we're approaching our 100th anniversary, which is not that much younger than Stanford itself. We publish 51 different review journals all across the range of academic studies in the life sciences, biomedicine, agriculture, physical sciences, and social sciences. And all of our content is commissioned, so we identify experts from around the world to write reviews on particular topics. The next one, please, Craig. Just to lay out what the reason for review articles are, there are 4 purposes for review articles. Probably the one that you would think about first is that a review article summarizes the current understanding of a topic. And in fact, it's a good way of making sure that any errors in the literature are slowly removed, because someone does a review and they look at comparative studies and outliers are easily identified, and it's a way of correcting and summarizing current understanding of a topic. Reviews also set the work in historical context, and you can really only understand the development of an idea or a field fully if you understand the history of it. It also looks forward, so a good review article highlights the major questions that need to be addressed and research directions that will answer those questions. And then fourthly, a good review outlines the practical applications and the significance of a body of research to society. So for these reasons, we believed, this is going back 6 or 7 years, that we believed in open access, and we believed that one very important area to make scholarly content open was review articles, because of these functions that it serves. But we weren't able to use any of the existing models, as I'll come on to. So the next slide, please, Ben. This just shows the impact of moving to open access using subscribe to open. And these are usage numbers collected from all European countries. The numbers along the bottom are the months of the year. The numbers on the y-axis or the axis are the numbers of downloads per month. So each different colored line is a different year. And the 3 lines that are closely grouped together on the bottom of this graph are the 3 years, the downloads for the 3 years immediately preceding our exploration of subscribe to open. And you can see that we had a very consistent and what we thought of as strong usage all across Europe. The red line shows the monthly downloads once we moved to subscribe to open. So the first full year that we did subscribe to open was 2023, and these are the numbers of downloads, and you can see that there's an increase of 2.5 to 3-fold usage in European countries. So quite a big impact. And we, as we move forward, we convert volumes to open access, but we've made 10 years of Annual Reviews content freely available. So this is the result of making a decade's worth of content freely available. Anything older than 10 years is still behind a paywall, and that's one of the rewards or incentives that we use to librarians or to libraries that continue to subscribe. They get full access to the 95 years worth of content and not just free access to 10 years. The next one, please, Craig. This is just to show you the even more substantial impact in low and medium income countries. Again, the lines along the bottom show years before we moved to open access. And here what I've done is to show the impact of opening up all of the content in 2020. That huge peak in the purple line is at the start of the pandemic, we took the paywall down on all of Annual Review's content, and this shows the potential usage of content in low and medium income countries. We didn't have very many subscribers there. We did try to make content freely available, but this is what happens when anyone in a low and medium income country can access the content just through having good web access. So this was one of the figures, in fact, that persuaded our board that it was an urgent priority for us to move to open. Next one, please, Craig. At that time, the options for us were fairly limited. We couldn't do article processing charges because, as I say, all of our content is invited. We couldn't do read and publish because we have a huge number of subscribing institutions and reading institutions, but the number of publishing institutions is relatively narrow because we use experts, and they're often the world-leading experts are often at a relatively small number of institutions. At that stage, philanthropy or funder support, what's commonly known now as Diamond OA, wasn't well developed. And although we did try to approach some funders to think about that, we didn't get a very positive response. And we ended up going for this group action approach. We had a large, stable subscriber base. We set out to explore how we could repurpose subscription budgets to support open access. This was, of course, contingent on the participation of all the subscribers, but it gave us a mechanism to move to open access, and I'm going to use the word equitable, free to read and free to publish, and that's the most equitable approach to open access, and I think that's important. The next one, Craig. So subscribe to open is laid out here. The libraries are asked to subscribe to journals. If we reach a target income for the journal that's published open access, if we lose a lot of subscribers along the way and we don't achieve the revenues that we need to publish open, then the journal stays behind the paywall for that year, and we try again in the following year. So we've now had 5 years of experience with Subscribe to Open, 3 pilots, and actually 6, 3 pilots and 3 years with full Subscribe to Open for all of our content, and every one of our journals has published open access under Subscribe to Open in that period. So it's a stable and successful model so far. Next, Craig. The features, and Ben, I think, laid these out very nicely. It's conceptually simple. It's revenue neutral. It doesn't cost any more to publish with or without a paywall. It uses the existing budgets, the existing relationships. It applies to readers and authors worldwide, to all disciplines, and we use CC BY licenses, so it's the most permissive way of making content available. And again, Craig. I wanted to mention that in addition to noting big increases in usage in academic institutions, there's also a long tail of usage of our content at non-academic institutions. These are some of the organizations that we've identified by IP address tables, and we can see that Annual Reviews is increasingly being used as a way of spreading academic knowledge through the community at large. Open access is very, very important, and Subscribe to Open is very important. You can see that there before Subscribe to Open, we were able to detect usage at 3,000 institutions. They were our subscribers in 57 countries, and a year after we had started Subscribe to Open, that number had gone up to over 7,000 in 137 different countries. And that may be it from me. Could you just see if there's one more slide? I don't think there is. Oh, there is, yeah. So the advantages, I mean, it's not all sweetness and light, but the advantages, I think, significantly outweigh the disadvantages. I will say as well at this point that it's very much a partnership between the communities that are interested in Subscribe to Open. So there are a group of publishers that share information in a way that we wouldn't otherwise share information, I think, amongst publishers. We work very closely with the librarian community in a way that we never did before, and I think the other models of open access don't engage. Obviously, publishers and librarians have very aligned goals in making knowledge widely available. And through the Subscribe to Open community of practice, we work very closely with librarians, also with funders, and with publishers of all different types to make this work. It's a fantastic community, and if you want to know more about it, then I'm very happy to provide you with information. So it's equitable, Subscribe to Open, inclusive, simple, cost-effective. It's transparent. That S2O publishers are particularly good at providing breakdown of costs and information about the finances of their journals. I think this is truly transformative. It converts entire journals to open access. And we and other publishers give special incentives to subscribing institutions to make sure that they've got good reason to continue to subscribe. Some disadvantages are that it may not be applicable to all publishers. It depends on subscribers staying with the model and may fail if subscribers drop out. Unlike other models, APCs, for instance, there's no access to other sources of funding. Annual Reviews only gets funding from the subscribing libraries. We don't get support from the funders of research, which we potentially could do if we went to APCs, and that's a bit of a barrier. Ben mentioned that that funding agencies are supportive of Subscribe to Open. We would like to find a way of also accessing some resources from them so that all of the burden isn't on libraries. And I have said there, but because the content is now freely available to all, it doesn't necessarily show up on the counter metrics, which means that sometimes things that we think are big successes aren't necessarily being as such by the librarians. So it's important for our sales team to have conversations around that. But essentially, we're very delighted that we've done it. We're very thankful to the librarians and the community for supporting us. And hopefully this will be a model that continues to thrive and grow in years to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Richard. It's great to see what Annual Reviews are up to and the successes. And also thank you so much for joining us whilst you're on holiday. We do appreciate it. So please do stay on the line just in case we have some extra questions at the end. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please do use the Q&A function at the top hand right side of your screen. Right. So thanks again, Richard. I'm now going to hand over to Laura. Laura, the floor's yours.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Laura Simon. I'm the head of business development at EMS Press, and I'm going to give you an overview of our open access program, which uses largely S2O. Next slide, please. So a little bit about who we are. We are the publishing house of the European Mathematical Society, which is the European not-for-profit organisation dedicated to promoting mathematics and mathematical research, not just in Europe, though, globally. We are truly European, so the head office is in Berlin. I'm in the UK. We have team members across the continent. And the original publishing house was established in Zurich in 2001, mainly due to discontent with the way they were being treated by their commercial publishing partner, so they opted to leave and establish their own organisation. In 2018, the managing director of that publishing house announced his retirement, so the publishing house was re-established in Berlin with new management and a mandate to transition to open access in a fair and sustainable way. We publish 26 journals and around 10 new books per year. We have one journal series that kind of sits somewhere between books and journals as well. We have about 250 books published to date. And in terms of the journals, we cover mostly pure mathematics, so sort of postdoctoral research level stuff. And on the book side, we cover everything, including history, social applications of mathematics, and so on. And as of last year, every single journal we published was open access, so 22 S2O and 4 Diamond. And we've actually managed to continue that success into this year. So again, all 26 journals are open. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you an overview of how we've done our S2O program in terms of the timeline. So 2019 is when we got told that we had to develop open access. That involved quite a lot of research into models that might be viable, and I'll explain why we chose S2O shortly. But that's what we landed on after a consultation with the community. They agreed it seemed like a good approach for the content that we produce. So we launched a pilot with the 10 EMS-owned journals. So we have a few publishing partners. We're partners with a few other societies and organisations, but we do own 10 of the journals that we publish. So we launched the pilot with them because it was seen as lower risk, and it was a success. So more journals were added in 22 and on until 24, when we had a full success with the OA program. We've actually, one of the journals that was in the S2O program has now flipped to a diamond journal, which is why we've gone from 23 to 22 S2O journals, but they're all still open. Next slide, please. So the reasons that we chose S2O kind of fall into 3 categories. So the first one you've already heard from the other 2 publishers is because it's operationally simple, it's administratively light, and it achieves open access at scale very easily. We are a small team. We only have 2 people working in the business development and sales admin side of things, so adding APCs would just be an unmanageable amount of work administratively, even if it was something we could do. But it's also not something that's really possible in mathematics. There isn't a lot of funding for research output, so the research itself is funded sometimes, but very rarely does that grant allocation come with an APC portion. So it really would shut down publication. But we also felt that S2O was a model that we could implement fairly, because we have it tied to, it's our subscription prices. So it covers the publication cost, it covers a bit of development for new titles or expansion if we feel that a field is growing. And then any surplus we have is directed to the society to support their activities. So it all comes back to supporting mathematics research and development. And our journals are all very affordable compared to APCs. Most of our journals are cheaper than the average European APC. And one of the things that we do is we participate in lots of the open access infrastructure projects as well, which isn't really related to why we chose it, but it's more just, it's a model that makes it easy to do this. Next slide, please. So this is very similar to Richard's diagram, may have been inspired by the annual reviews one way back then. But this is how we manage it. So you take out your subscription, we have a deadline, usually it's the end of January. Then we decide whether the journals are going to publish open access or not. We do have some federation between journals because we own so many of them and because we have this agreement with the publishing partners. So if a journal achieves its target, we take revenue from the package and allocate it to other journals to achieve the maximum amount of open access. So this is what we do. Open access journals are published with the CC BY license, and then the subscription cycle starts again, on and on. So it's never guaranteed for the future, but we can guarantee it for the year when we do achieve it. Next slide, please. So here's our output, and I just kind of wanted to show how successful it's been in flipping our portfolio. So you can see in 2020 we had almost no open access. We had 1 open access journal, 1 free to read journal, and you can see that that's clear by the amount of content behind the paywall. And then the amount of open access content has increased year on year. 24 looks like there's a lot of subscription content. That's because we publish everything as quickly as we can, and it goes into a section of the website called Online First. That's for subscribers only, but generally over the course of the coming year, the Online First articles move into issues which are published open access. So I think this really highlights the point that was made by the other publishers, that it's rapid OA at scale. Next slide, please. And in terms of the future of S2O, So for us, the model's working really well. It's consistently sustainable, it's equitable. We get good feedback from the libraries and the research community that this is something that works for them. But we know that research funding bodies are reluctant to fund ABCs. They haven't said yet what they will support. We can't take a journal model for granted, I think. And we know that library budgets in lots of parts of Europe for subscriptions aren't growing, so we somehow need to square that circle and sort of figure out how we work with the funders and the libraries to make sure that models like S2O can be funded in the future. And we're seeing quite a lot of global divergence in terms of policy approaches to open access. In Europe, there's been a lot of interest in Diamond, which I personally don't think is very sustainable for every journal. It's great when it does work, but that's what we're seeing in Europe. Obviously, the US is doing its own thing. And AI is raising practical and ethical questions about the licensing of OA. CC BY licenses aren't necessarily loved by authors at the moment because of the way that AI is misrepresenting their research. So for us, it's important to be pragmatic, but we will always follow our community. And so whatever S2O works for them, we'll stick with it. There's one more slide. Yeah, so just to summarize, so our mission is to keep costs low, quality high, and to keep our programs sustainable and equitable. We have a combination of open access models, but S2O is really the one where we see the best results. Diamond is just not applicable to many titles. Because S2O is so light and simple, we've been able to leverage existing infrastructure, so we haven't had to expand our team, we haven't had to take money away from the mission to spend it on personnel. And it's also allowed us to easily plug into these other open access infrastructure projects and support those. And we do see challenges in the future, but we think that we're well equipped to deal with those, and certainly the Subscribe to Open Community of Practice, which no one's mentioned yet, but it's a group of organisations and people who support Subscribe to Open, are well placed to sort of look into the future and respond to any challenges that might arise collectively. And that's everything from me.
Great. Thanks very much, Laura. Thanks for your insights. It's really great to see. And thanks for joining us also. Right, so we've got about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to hand over to our final panelist for today. We have Ruth. Are you there, Ruth, with us still?
I certainly am, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Right, all yours. Thank you very much.
Yes, hello everybody, I'm Ruth Dale. A slightly different angle on these from those fascinating insights from my publisher colleagues there, but I'm very happy to join you today to share thoughts on the general topic of sustainability. And in fact, my title slide here for you today is quite appropriate. This is our Jubilee campus in Nottingham, which is a regional hub for clean energy and is built on the site of the former Raleigh bicycle factory in Nottingham. And that interesting shaped building that you see at the top of the lake is in fact one of our libraries. Looks a bit like a UFO that's landed in the lake. It has books in it, I do assure you. You've heard from our publishing colleagues about their journey towards sustainability and open access, and we have a lot of the same aims. But what about higher education libraries from the other side of the water, so to speak? Where are we now? Why are we there? Why are we there? And what next? Next slide, please. So Nottingham Teaching and Research is fairly comprehensive, as you can see from this slide that says something briefly about each of our faculties. And this comprehensiveness is both a blessing and a curse. Next slide. Our research, we are a research intensive university, but our teaching is also explicitly research led. So scholarly content is important for both students and for researchers, with overseas campuses as well as campuses in the UK. And much collaboration across national and international boundaries. This should predispose us to support open access, and I think I can say that it has done. Next slide, please, Craig. So Nottingham's been involved with open access publishing for more than 20 years. So by one benchmark, that's fairly sustainable. At first, a local repository was supplemented by what was then quite a rare local open access publishing fund, which at that time covered mainly prepaid discounts for APCs. It was a research cost. It wasn't owned by the library, but there was great interest within libraries in open access in general and open access infrastructure. And maybe not a lot of people know this, but a local libraries project in Nottingham called Sherpa went through a series of transformations to become what is now the JISC Open Policy Finder. So we were interested in open access from quite an early date. More recently, along with many libraries in the UK, of course, the shift in funder requirements has led to grants to support open access publishing during what we were told was a transitional period. And ironically, our local open access fund was discontinued at that point. The block grants are still managed by our research colleagues, so we work together to both spend and report against those grants. Some diamond and more sustainable open access has been possible, but it's never really been an option so far at the scale needed. So that is largely how we've been able to invest in open access so far. Next slide. This is what's led us, I suppose. So library's primary role is to provide access to support our own current teaching and research. And sometimes those drivers also facilitate open access. Journals, we've all mentioned funders, but also in our case, and for many libraries, our readers influence action. Nottingham authors might be publishing more than 2,000 articles each year, but unfortunately, Nottingham readers are apparently also reading many, many millions that are still behind a paywall. So read and publish deals have felt like a necessity. On the books front, rising expectations of easy access to learning, which is a whole other subject, not for today, meant there's been limited access on our availability to invest in open access books, although recently there's been a fund available, a central UK fund, for applying for some individual book processing charges, BPCs. Investing in Diamond and Subscribe to Open has been quite limited so far, with one stellar exception. So for more than 10 years now, we've been participants in the high energy physics programme scope, which required commitments from many different journals, some different publishers, and many different countries and subscribers. But I'm guessing that's really was a Subscribe to Open project before it was even called that. Other Diamond and non-APC investment has mostly been in monographs from our books budget, ring-fenced, small but increasing amounts since 2014. Very, very few instances where that has enabled a Nottingham academic to actually publish open access, but we live in hope. On that front though, however, we've moved from struggling to find what to spend it on to having quite a healthy wish list to draw upon. So that's what we've been investing in open access so far. Next slide. The content that we've been publishing and that others have been publishing certainly has increased, but still too much is behind a paywall. As you may have heard, we have less and less money. It's not sustainable to continue with these big deals at present. And if we're looking at the next 10 to 20 years, what can libraries do to help publishers, such as my colleagues here, to maximise access to all of research, including our own? Next slide. The money aspect first. So thinking both about spend and demand. On the spend, yes, we need to make it sustainable by containing what we spend to what we actually have or what we have control of. The additional grants that some of us have had access to have given us a breathing space, but they don't appear to have reduced subscriptions. And in the UK, we're beginning this year to look actively at very different models for national agreements to change what we've been doing and to recognise the quite serious financial position that we're in with UK institutions. Subscribe to Open, of course, is a key example of such a model, and that kind of principle is exactly where we're going to be looking and concentrating. Similarly, book agreements that use backlist purchases to fund frontlist and other innovative models like that. It's a bit harder with these, however, as some of you have mentioned, to give our authors certainty about how they're going to meet their funder requirements. Next slide, please. Sorry, could you go back a slide? I think I've moved on too fast there. Missed a whole bit. Thank you. So as well as controlling the spend, one thing that libraries do have some influence over is maybe the demand. So the only way ultimately to increase open access investment is to reduce the demand for paywalled content. Some of us have had to start withdrawing from some big deals. It's interesting, or it will be interesting to see what the actual demand on our article supply then proves to be. And it's essential to maximise discovery to send our users to open access content. And this includes actively trying to get more open access links in reading lists for teaching, both to journals and to books, and especially around background reading. Right, I do want the next slide now, thank you. Next slide, please, Claire. Thank you. In addition to spend and demand, then quality. So sector principles help increase a consistent quality so that both sides know what to look for, such as, but not limited to, financial viability. We need to know that the initiatives aren't a flash in the pan, that they have longevity, equity, reducing barriers to publishing, and most importantly, in order to share trust on both sides, real transparency in the process both of what's being published and how the costs are allocated. And initiatives such as Subscribe to Open and Diamond models too, just by their very cooperative nature, are perhaps inherently more better suited for monitoring against quality principles such as those. And then, of course, being not only proactive but collective. It is important to support local teaching and research, but libraries are part of networks. With Diamond and similar models, it's perhaps less easy to prove a local advantage to our authors. However, we have to consider that we might indirectly be enabling access and publishing for others, and hopefully the reverse will also be true for our own users. We're quite used to sharing our physical collections to others who happen to visit us. Perhaps online, this open access future, so to speak, is the shared resource, free of the licensing restrictions that we've been plagued by as we've moved to online paid for resources. And not just the content, as Laura referenced at the end of her presentation, we do need to support the infrastructure for this as well, particularly thinking of discovery, not only platforms but metadata as well. Next slide. Even with the principles to guide, so far it hasn't been easy, and it's not going to be in future. It's an ideal aim that we're all looking to, but it's important to be fully aware of the continuing challenges. Complexity is one of the ones that's already been mentioned. All of you so far have said how much simpler Subscribe to Open is, and all I can say is bring it on. Open access is not self-publishing, and it's imperative that we guard against that, but also look to minimise as widely as we can the complication of the systems. It's a barrier to engagement, particularly with authors, very difficult to understand. The historical pattern of publishing that we're left with has been linked to academic recognition and reward and their need to publish. So it's not entirely in our control. Others do need to change their practice, but libraries are usually still a trusted partner with institutions, and we're already trying to use our influence to encourage an emphasis on quality rather than quantity when it comes to publishing. And finally, we almost certainly will not be getting any more money to do any of this. It will be less, and any planning that we do needs to assume this. There isn't any magic money tree. And my last slide, please. I'm ending with a duck from that lake that you saw at the beginning at the top, so I'm going to finish with sustainability. So it may not be possible, as the enthusiasts maybe once thought, for all research content to become open access, but aiming high with these principles and this collaboration that we're all been talking about will at least ensure that we can try to do better. That's it from me.
Great, thank you, Ruth. It's great to get your point of view on things. Really appreciate it. Very interesting as well. Right, look at the time. We've got just about 10 minutes for questions. There's a few that have come in through the Q&A. Let me stop sharing. Let's get your faces up. So hopefully now everyone will be able to see our panelists. We have a few questions. So I'm going to start with this. Oh, yeah, I'll come off camera as well. There we go. There's a short one. Can you imagine publishers such as Springer Nature and utilising the S2O model? Perhaps this is one for Ben.
You would need to ask them, but I suspect not. I suspect it's not in their interests. I think, S2O works for a particular combination of subjects, journals, authorships, geographical spread. Publishers like Springer Nature with very strong STM portfolios, often in subjects where research funding is available in order to fund APCs, are always, I suspect, always going to opt for that model because it enables them to open up a revenue stream which works alongside subscription. I suspect their ultimate goal is not actually to transform their entire portfolio, but they're quite happy to have a revenue stream that works alongside their existing healthy subscription one, and gives them another way of earning margin, which is not an option that you have if you have a portfolio like de Gruyter's Brills, and to be honest, is also not one of our aims. We're not aiming for a Springer-like margin on what we do. Our aim is always to balance a sustainable portfolio with keeping things sustainable and manageable for our authors and our library partners.
Yeah, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what Ben said is exactly right, but it could be. We don't know what models are going to be supported by the funders, and at least I hope that subscribe to open will still be something that they like. Lots of funders are now withdrawn from APCs, so the range of options that are open even to the big publishers is probably narrowing. So some of them may look to subscribe to open for particular sections of their portfolio, and Taylor and Francis have got subscribe to open journals now. I think Sage. So some of the bigger commercial publishers are looking at it. I've certainly talked to people at Springer Nature about what we do, and I've no indication of whether or not they're thinking of trying it, but they're certainly aware of it and exploring it.
Can I input there as well? So
yeah, go ahead.
Springer was one of the very early big package deals. I think that was the very first one. We invested in at Nottingham 20 years ago. So the question for me is the difficulty of both from the publisher and the library's point of view, where you've been used to having not individual subscriptions that you can convert to subscribe to open, but a whole package of content, and moving back from that is really tricky. And if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have said never. But this year in the UK, we've seen university after university withdrawing from the big deals and doing exactly that, setting up some individual subscriptions. So ironically, actually, it might get easier for some of the titles from those publishers to rethink and offer more subscribe to open.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Laura, would you like to say anything? I thought just
to say that obviously you can't know what other companies are going to do, but Springer do have substantial collections of subjects like pure mathematics, so there's definitely scope within their portfolio to diversify the models that they're using. So I wouldn't say it's off the cards.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Right, long question. So for our panelists, you might want to read it. It's in the Q&A, but I will read it aloud for our audience. From Kate, who apologises for the long question, but it's okay, Kate, don't worry. What kind of renewal rates are you seeing? How often does a journal or group of journals have to swap back out of the S2O model? And what drives renewal decisions from a library perspective? Ruth, would you like to lead on this one, maybe?
Well, yeah, it's not straightforward. So renewal decisions, I'd like to say that each year we look in detail at the usage of every journal and the publishing in every journal. The usage is fairly easy to evaluate. The publishing, we're still learning how to figure out what is good value for us. But realistically, it's just too time consuming. So we cherry pick each year and look at what our budget is and where we need to make savings, and what it is practical for us to do, and look at some of the big deals are the ones that we're looking at. So moving from having prioritised renewing big deals for many years, maybe at the expense of some individual subscriptions, is now kind of starting to shift the other way, because the scale of the savings that we have to make is so considerable that we're starting with the deals rather than trying to make up our savings from lots of individual subscriptions.
Thank you, Ruth.
I can have a stab at the other part of the question. Sorry, or Richard, I'm happy to leave it to you if you want.
Well, I just wanted to say the experiences that get shared at the community of practice. First of all, I would say that the publishers that have been using S2O have, without fail, been very careful about what journals they choose to put into the model. And so there have been remarkably few instances where a journal hasn't been supported. Laura, you go to the meetings as well. I can only think of a couple of instances, and none of the publishers present here are the publishers of those journals. But there have been a couple of instances where the support just hasn't been enough to guarantee subscribe to open in a given year. And that's out of, I don't know, maybe several hundred, a couple of hundred at least, journals a year that are going forward. So I don't think the failure rate is as low even as there are journal closures. I mean, journals can fail for all kinds of reasons. It's not necessarily because of the model. It could be that an editorial committee changes, or a field becomes less popular, or there's some other issue around the journal. I think this was a big red flag raised when Subscribe to Open came on the scene, but so far at least journals going in and out of open hasn't happened anywhere. And as I say, I can only think of two instances where two different journals for 1 year didn't move to OA. Is that your recollections as well, Laura and Ben?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah, there were a couple. I think EDP Science had to put a couple back behind the paywall, but that was largely because they didn't get support from China, where S2O is a difficult sell often in terms of understanding of the model and getting support for it. But yeah, I mean, our experience so far has been overwhelmingly positive. We haven't said, you know, what the hurdle is that journals have to reach in order to stay open access from year to year. That's not because we want to be secretive about it. It's partly because we're still learning about it. So we're still kind of figuring out, okay, what is a sustainable level of subscription and support for a journal over several years. It's partly because it's not actually a simple thing to do by the time you look at all the different types of income stream for a model, for a journal. Being able to set a certain bar of percentage of whatever for a journal is not actually that easy to do. It works for all the titles. But we are working towards a kind of annual report that will show, what support a journal has got and how our decision making has been influenced by the level of library or subscriber support for that journal. And our aim is to become more transparent with the community as we develop this. So so stay tuned for that, because we do plan to publicize it.
Great, thanks, Ben. Do we have time for one more question? We have a few more minutes, everybody. Yep. Okay, there's a couple here. I'll go with one that's just a little bit shorter, from someone named Laura. They've asked, could any of the panels say a bit more about subscribe to open versus Diamond OA? In which circumstances is one model more appropriate than the other?
I could start just because we only have the two models, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for us, it's come down entirely to where the money comes from. So we have our Diamond journals are supported by their society or institutional owners. They do most of the work for those journals. So we are kind of more like a distribution network and platform. We provide print services and we make sure that they get into all of the various databases and things that they need to be in, and we provide some marketing and sales support for those print copies. But for us, it's very pragmatic. Are the costs for the journal covered? If somebody else can cover them, then we're happy to have it as a Diamond journal. If not, then it needs to be a subscribe to open journal.
Yeah, I'd say exactly that. We don't have any Diamond support for our journals. We would be delighted. But I do like the idea of many institutions contributing, because it means, for instance, that a library in Latin America or a library in Asia has got a say in the conversion to open access, and they're not just dependent on some probably Western foundation or organization to make those decisions for them. And I think we need to open up and be more inclusive in the decisions that are made within the academic community about how we fund and what moves to open, because again, developing research from developing countries is being marginalized even more by some of the processes of open access, accidentally, but nonetheless it is happening.
Yeah, I think just one point to add, maybe, that running and managing a journal portfolio is a long-term business, and you're constantly focusing sort of 3 to 5 years out, or even further ahead than that. And I think a number of the questions that have been raised around S2O, around the sustainability and the long-term feasibility of it, they apply to Diamond as well, because it's unlikely that you're going to get more than a 5-year commitment to funding a Diamond journal from a body of any kind, whether it's a society or another funder. So you're always looking at, okay, what is the scenario if that funding is no longer there? What happens to this journal? How do we keep it going? And those are often a lot of the conversations that go into finding the right model for a journal, is how to keep it financially sustainable over a long period of time. And I think as time plays out, we will see what the relative strengths and weaknesses of S2O versus Diamond or other models actually are.
Right, thank you, Ben. Ruth, would you like to make any final comments?
No, I don't think I've got any insights that are any better than any of those excellent responses.
Great. Well, thank you. Right, everybody, I'm so sorry we went over by a few minutes, but there's just a lot we had to cover and a lot of questions I wanted to answer. So thanks to everyone that answered a question. Thanks to all 4 of our panelists here today, Richard, Ruth, Laura and Ben. For all of our attendees, you will receive an email in the coming days with a recording of the webinar, so you can always refer back to it if you like. And once again, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining today. Do look out, keep an eye on our socials, because we'll be running more events like this in the future, and we'd love to have you back. So thanks again, everybody, and I hope you'll have a